So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Keir's dilemma. Starmer faces an antagonising dilemma to call out the Brexit disaster or to stay silent, which is kind of true. He could do a lot better, to be honest. I'll get to that at some point in the article, but I think, he could do a lot better in a lot of regards. He has tried, but he doesn't do a lot of interviews, I've noticed. In a sideswipe at Prime Minister's questions this week, Boris Johnson claimed falsely that Starmer would like to take the UK back into the EU, which is not true at all. He's a massive Europhile, but he's been very adamant that that's not going to happen. He will say it again and again before the next general election. Daniel Kazini, Downing Street's new Deputy Chief of Staff, has put delivering on Brexit at the top of the government's 5 priorities remarkably. And I think that's a really stupid strategy. I don't think that's a good strategy. I think the issues are the Tories are rubbish on the cost of living, they're rubbish on the NHS, they're rubbish on crime, they're rubbish on refugee boats. So I guess Brexit is all they have, but if they focus more on the other stuff, I think they'll do a lot better. He told advisors, if you don't think Brexit is a priority, you shouldn't be here. And okay, but I thought Brexit was done in 2019. What are you talking about? It's over, fam. That's what I thought anyways. Johnson's campaign to persuade voters and his impatient Brexiteer MPs that leaving the EU has been a success when it hasn't been a success. Where is the successes? Honestly, trade is down 15% according to the OBR because of Brexit. Where's the wins? Where's the wins, Chief? This has made Starmer ultra cautious about exposing the increasingly obvious flaws in the PM's deal, and that's what he could say. Johnson said there will be no non-tariff barriers. Talk to trade people, there's tons of non-tariff barriers. Customs, SPS, all of this stuff, non-tariff barriers. That's what these are. They're not tariffs, but they are barriers to trade. That's what Starmer needs to talk about. He's got to talk about how people are lied to. Not that people are stupid, but that people are lied to. If you're deceived by someone, it's not necessarily because you're stupid. Sometimes it is, though. Accusing the government of delivering low growth and high tax is a good attack line for Labour, but the party ties one hand behind its own back because it won't dare to say Brexit is one reason for low growth. And you could argue Labour are doing well in the polls, but is it Labour are doing well in the polls, or is it that the Tories are doing badly in the polls? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. Starmer promises to make Brexit work, but says little about how, and this is something that's frustrated me to no end. The best we've got out of them is they're going to get equivalency deals with the EU over agri-foods. That's it. That's the only thing that we've gotten out of them. So, yeah, it's a joke, to be honest. People can argue it's not an election year, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at where Labour will do better in, it's things like the cost of living crisis. It's the energy crisis, where Labour actually got ideas on, stuff where, when the government say, there's nothing we can do about these things, Labour can say, actually, there is stuff you can do. You're just being lazy or incompetent or ideological. You're playing politics with people's lives with your failed economic understanding. The coolest person in the room will always be the one with the answers. He rules out rejoining the single market or customs union because that would give Johnson's fantasy Labour policy some credence, which is true. That's why he's kind of hinted at equivalency deals. Johnson's election will be keep Brexit done. I suppose another thing Labour could say is that the reason why the EU won't give the Tories equivalency deals is because they can't be trusted, because they constantly talk about deregulation, whilst the EU can trust the Labour Party. We don't know if that's true or not, but they can argue it. But Brexit isn't done, which is true. There's a lot of things that haven't been done yet, and there'll be the TCA will be renegotiated in 2026. As the Independent revealed, the government will likely postpone the introduction of checks on EU imports for a 4th time because they would compound the squeeze on living standards, which is something we've spoken about before. Basically, they were going to delay. They are probably going to delay doing physical checks and security checks and other things on EU goods because there's no space in Dover to do these. That's why they're building more inland areas to do the checks. But again, you're going to have to monitor, make sure these lorries go into these inland areas to do the checks, and if they're rejected, to send them back to send them back towards France, essentially, or towards the Netherlands, or whichever is their easiest point of entry for the EU. And Brexit isn't working. Even Sunak, our pro-leave Chancellor, admits it's harming trade, saying it was unsurprising the changing UK-EU relationship would have an impact, which is true. Once you start putting trade barriers in, trade will naturally drop off because it's a hassle, especially when the EU have so many other countries to trade with. The author goes on saying, I don't remember the Brexiteers saying this in 2016, neither do I, especially when you've got people saying only a madman would leave the single market and absolutely no one's questioning our place in the EU single market. Well, apparently there were people questioning it and people who chose to leave it. Nick McPherson, the crossbench peer and former permanent secretary at the Treasury, said it is rare the Treasury gets the long-term estimate of the cost of something right. 6 years on from the referendum, the effect on growth from Brexit is tangible. And obviously people say, well, we didn't see massive drop-offs in 2016 because we only left the EU 2021, which, it's only been over a year. He predicted that in 20 years after one of the Tories' periodic upheavals, the pendulum would swing back and the UK would have a far closer relationship with the EU short of rejoining. I don't think that'll be 20 years. I think that will be when there's a next... it'll be if Labour can win 2 elections on the spin. So I think that'll be within the next probably 15 years, if I was going to be pedantic. The OBR fiscal watchdog said last week that overall UK trade volumes are down by about 15% on what would have happened if the country had stayed in the EU, and that's lost money for the UK. We would have made money off the sales of those products, and we lost out. Because it has made it more expensive to trade with the largest trading partner. If you look at all of the checks and everything else, it's a nightmare if you're the importing person. So why would you want to go through that hassle when, if you're in Spain, you can import from France, Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden, and other countries? It's just ridiculous. Such evidence has fueled an intense behind-the-scenes debate inside Labour on whether the party should end its virtual silence on Brexit. Feelings ran high at a discussion staged by the Progressive Britain think tank this week. Question: why is our leader refusing to enlighten the electorate about how they were lied to by the Brexiteers? And I think one of the issues is that at the moment, you're going to have to give a lot of context to separate the impact of Brexit from the pandemic. I think that's a key problem, which Labour are reluctant to do. I think that's why they're struggling to enlighten the electorate, especially when the Tories will just lie. They'll just say, oh, we're the fastest growing economy in the G7 and all of this other stuff. He wants to take us back into the EU. That's why they're doing this. The sharp pro-Starmer reply was because he wants to fight current and future battles in order to win the next election and bring Remainers and Leavers together. Well, you're going to struggle to bring Remainers and Leavers together for the most part. But the point is, the fight the current and future battles. Well, our exports are down by about 15% according to the OBR. That's a current battle and a future battle. So, you can't argue Brexit is done and you're going to fight other things because A, you're doing a rubbish job of fighting other things, and B, Brexit is current. It's impacting our exports and our imports a loads. I don't know if the Tories will ever start doing the import checks, physical inspections, because we are at risk of breaching WTO. We have breached WTO rules. It's only a matter of, is someone going to take us to court over it? And the other simple fact is that if these physical checks happen, how bad are the delays going to be? That's a key question. That's when you can really point at Brexit doing the damage, because of all these phased-in checks where you can say, well, you said the pandemic was over, why is trade still down? That's, Labour have to be smart in the way they phrase things and frame things. The rest of the world exports have gone up, ours haven't. Why is that? If Labour want to tackle the Brexit issue, they have to be intelligent in the way they do it. And let's be honest, there's a lack of talent on the front bench, a real lack of talent. Another Starmer critic said, Labour cannot make Brexit work because Brexit will never work, which is true. The only things you can do is lessen the damage from it through things like equivalency deals. That's it. Even alignment deals, there's still paperwork involved. Not as much, but a few bits of paperwork. The economic imperatives mean that sooner or later the UK will be forced to rejoin the EU, which is true. But the thing is, it's a two-way street. The EU have to accept us back in. That's what a lot of rejoiners keep missing. It's not we want to be back in the club. Back in the club. It's up to the EU as well. They get a vote on this, and each EU member state has a veto on us rejoining. France could go all de Gaulle and say no. It could be anyone, honestly. Let's make it sooner, the counter view was. We lost 6 years ago, deal with that and deal with the situation as it is now. Stop infighting something we lost. But the thing is though, that we lost that battle, but the war still goes on. You can't, our exports are down 15%, our imports are going to take a major hit. We don't have the facilities within the UK to replace the lost trade. In terms of agri-foods, manufacturing, component parts, we don't have the facilities to replace that. The EU does, because there's 27 countries in that. And there's 27, you got some big economies in there. Germany and France, they're above us in terms of GDP. Italy's a big economy. You have so many others. Even the smaller ones, they can still make up the loss. We've covered in a previous article how other countries like Portugal are making up for the things that the UK had made. You've got exporting companies like I think Airbus left or left a lot of their facilities in the UK and went to start manufacturing in the EU. That, depending on where they set up shop, say if they set up in Portugal, for example, they could replace the stuff the UK exported previously. We talked about other component factories that have left the UK that have chosen to set up shop in the EU or other places because of Brexit. There is no sign Starmer will bow to internal critics, and that's potentially because he might think he's right, and also the fact that he's very insular. His cabinet are hard to get hold of. Do you remember one of the local elections? I think it was last year where Labour got absolutely stomped on. It might have been the first summer. I can't remember when he did the reshuffle, and then he fired Angela Rayner, and then he had to rehire her because he realised how much of a stink it made. Yes, other people will lie to you about that, but I didn't, because we saw it. We saw what happened. We looked at the evidence. I gave the sources. It was a disaster for Labour. So the Labour MPs talked about how hard it is to get a hold of Keir's office, which is bad if you're a leader. People should be able to get a hold of you. If people say, look, I've got these criticisms or these concerns, they should be able to offer you that in an honest fashion. But the current Labour leader is very insular, just like the previous one was. To be fair, the Labour leader does have an agonising dilemma. Attacking Johnson on the issue could undermine his key goal of regaining red wall seats. He could easily say he lied to you. He did. He said there'll be no non-tariff barriers. There are. We'll get rid of them in an equivalency deal. Or for the most part, we'll get rid of them. You can even lie. I don't care at this point. He does not want to be accused of telling Leave voters they were stupid. He doesn't have to tell them they were stupid. He just needs to say Johnson lied to you. That's it. He goes, nothing will change from this. Well, we've seen our exports go down 15%. Why are we bucking global trends in a bad way? World beating, our exports are going down negatively when other countries, their exports are going up in the good direction, the positive direction. However, while the UK remains split down the middle on Brexit, I don't think it's as split as it was back in 2016. Opinion is shifting. The Leavers of 2016 have become less optimistic and its benefits, and Remainers have become more pessimistic. The number of Leavers who would still vote to leave the EU has dropped from 87% to 80% in the last year, and I don't know if that would have shifted the 2016 referendum if those numbers had changed, but the simple fact is you need a lot more people to change their views, and the only way that's going to happen is through educating the electorate on things. That's it. And I don't think Labour are the party to do it. Maybe the Lib Dems will, maybe the Greens will, but, like I said, there's a massive lack of talent on that front bench. Significantly, some Starmer allies are starting to wonder whether he might be making the wrong call. They ask, what if, by the next election, most voters judge Brexit isn't working, which, sure, unicorns maybe exist, but if that does happen, I think because Labour are so slow to get onto issues, when it comes to the cost of living crisis, they're very slow, I think, to get on top of it, at least hammer the Tories on it consistently. I wonder if they will just, it won't be, Labour kind of pushing the electorate in a direction. It'll be the electorate pushing Labour in a direction, which isn't necessarily bad, but if Labour kind of change tack too late, it'll look very opportunistic and very disingenuous. They worry Labour might then be seen as complicit in the disaster and unable to criticise the Tories for it. I don't think Labour would be seen as complicit in it, but they would be seen as ineffective opposition. That's the only thing I think people would see from that. As one told me, for understandable reasons, Keir has climbed aboard the Brexit bandwagon, but where are we left if voters come to see it might crash off the road? That's the thing where it'll be very dangerous for Starmer. If he seems to be flipped too late, because he was a Remainer, now he's like, make Brexit work, and then he'll become a rejoiner again. It looks very disingenuous, to be honest, and I don't think people particularly like that. But it just depends on how much people actually knew of his original ambitions. But anyways, look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.